Okay, we're live.
All right.
Testing, testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn minstrel shows, Mallory, and marriage.
And in 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. I am one of your hosts, Scott Jones. Joining me, as always, Mr. Paul Packler. Paul, how's it going?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good. Corey?
Just great.
Corey, you look clean shaven today.
I am. I am freshly shaven today.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're like the opposite of me and Paul right now. We got like scraggly beards. And, Yeah.
Much like a hockey fan, I'm going to keep growing this beard until we have a new president. That's what I'm doing.
I love that. That. You totally
Why
should.
are you not out protesting on "This is not my President's Day"?
Well, because I'm with you guys. I have to, I have certain things that I have to do, and then I move on and become a good citizen.
Good for you.
Good for you, man. And everyone's wearing is this the president? We're all wearing black today?
Oh, that's right. I should be dressing in black today. I will go out.
No.
Yeah. If we could change our logo a little bit, we would make it black.
Mm-hmm.
So picture our logo in black.
Sure.
Today. Yeah. Oh, guys, this episode. Season I know, Paul, we're saying every episode in season 5 is great.
And it was. It was a great episode.
It was a great episode. It was a wonderful episode. Yeah.
Can we get a title?
Yes. If you're playing along, we are in season 5, episode 6.
6.
Episode 6, Mrs. Wrong. Now, if you remember, guys, in the very first episode where we are introduced to Nick, it is called Mr. Wrong. So obviously, this episode, we have one of our favorite characters, probably the only, what I find the best thing of this episode, out of a great episode, is Nick.
I don't know why it's called Mrs. Wrong, because no one's married yet. At the time, it would have been Miss Wrong. Today, it would probably be Ms. Wrong.
Ms. Wrong, that's right.
I don't get it.
I don't get this episode. The logic of this episode is very shaky, as we've seen with season 5. And the jokes are terrible.
Can we discuss the non-story?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because nothing happens here.
The non-story is a little bit of a problem for me. They want to get married. Yeah, they want to get married. Go ahead, flesh that one out for 20.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, they had nothing. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. Nothing entered the picture. Nothing left the picture. It was nothing. There's nothing happening.
This is truly two things. This is truly, like you're saying, Corey, a void of an episode. There is no there.
There's no there. There's hardly anything to write a note about. I simply am being picky about dialogue because there is no story.
And then part two is, for listeners, Scott left out one of the most important parts, and it ties back into what Corey just said. This is not just one standalone episode. This Nothing Burger is part 1 of 2.
We're going to be doing this 2 times. And guess what? Paul and I were talking this week. This season 1 has 30 episodes. Oh, Christ almighty. And 2, there are like 5 or 6 two-parters.
I'm going to cry.
2-parters. We are through the looking glass, people. This show has become a caricature of itself. Oh.
All I can say is, since this is season 5, I am the dog. I'm the dog in the room on fire. I'm looking at my coffee, and I'm saying, this is fine.
The Stockholm Syndrome is taking over Paul.
It's true. Instead of saying this is fine, the dog would just say sha-la-la-la.
Or sit, Ubu, sit. Well, let's start this off. Okay, so we're in the kitchen, and everyone's getting ready for the day. We have some, and Corey, this is, we're going to revisit your biggest complaint, which I agree with you on. Brian Bonsall. Yeah, Andy.
Worst.
Alex is king. We say that like 3 or 4 times.
Alex is king. Alex is king. By the way, I just want to present something to you, okay, Scott? Because you're the one who's got 2 children who are of 5. Let's say a couple of years down the line, may start saying to you and your lovely bride, Kerry, Henry is king. Henry is king. As a parent, don't you think you might want to correct Henry?
Oh, that would not stand.
And say, Henry's not king, really. He's really not a king. He may think he's a king, but he's just your brother.
Yeah, and going to Alex's narcissism, how narcissistic is that?
That he's training his brother to say, Alex is king.
Yeah.
And then giving
can I stop you guys and ask you a question for clarification? Being that I don't have kids, is this really that big of a deal? Like, the 4-year-old doesn't actually think that Alex is a king. Like, it's a joke. It's funny, right? Isn't it just cute?
Yeah.
It could be problematic.
Yeah, it would be troubling to me.
Okay.
If somebody was actually brainwashing one of my kids into thinking something was true, that's not true. And little kids hear about kings and queens in fairy tales and Disney movies, and they see that they're powerful and that you've got to listen and obey the king. I don't know. I don't want him to think that he's got to obey anybody except mommy and daddy and teachers. Yes. That's who you obey.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, the trail of logic with the 4-year-old he eventually will find out what he is saying. He may not know it at first, but he eventually will discover it. Did you guys kind of want, when they were looking at the photo albums and Elise was pointing out who's mommy, did you secretly want Andy to say Jennifer?
As opposed to mommy, because she's the one who's raising her.
Exactly. That would have been amazing.
I really wanted to. I would have loved that.
Yeah, if the writers had any sort of like meta irony, they totally would have done that. Like with all the times that they just pawn off in every episode, they pawn off, and it happens in this episode too. They pawn off Andy onto Jennifer.
In fact, this is the episode where it goes even further than it has been. I think Jennifer has officially been turned into Cinderella.
She's doing laundry.
Doing laundry. She's raising Andy. She's feeding. Oh, Jennifer, we're all going to go out. You go clean the bathroom.
She was hanging out with
school.
She was hanging out with some singing mice that I noticed. Did you hear that? Did you see those little cartoon mice?
It's ridiculous. I can't believe her mother or her agent isn't saying something about this.
Yeah.
And you know what? We start this scene with Andy and Elise at the table looking at the thing. Alex comes in and we did the bit that we just talked about. But for the first time in a few episodes, I want to bring up orange juice makes an appearance.
Thank God. I know.
Yeah.
Although he goes in the second act, he pours a can of soda for that chump that comes over from the frat house. Which I was like, don't pour soda, get him some OJ. That's what everybody wants to do.
And what's great is when Mallory comes in after Alex has poured himself an orange juice, Mallory gets one, and then she talks about how she just got off school and had a meeting with a professor, and I'm like, everyone is having a late afternoon
orange juice. I was too, Paul. I was very confused as to the time of day because they were all chomping down on OJ, and then I realized, wait a minute, it's late afternoon.
I thought it was morning. I thought it was breakfast because they don't establish it up top.
I did too.
It was really funny. There was a moment of realization where you go, it's around 4:30 or so.
The orange juice is now giving us the time of day. And let's talk about Mallory in the scene, because this is where we get to the main plot line in quotations of this episode. Is she is completely stressed out about everything.
Well, grad college isn't as easy as you think it's going to be.
Yeah, it's challenging at grad college.
She's got, although Alex wonders if she actually has professors at grad college.
Yeah, she's still giving her shit about being in college, or going to grad college. Yeah, and on top of that, she feels like everybody is on her case. Like Steven comes in and she freaks out on him, and she is just sick and tired with everything.
She's got a lot on her plate right now, according to her. And while all this is going on, Alex starts eating something, we didn't see what it was at first, from a giant can.
That was weird.
Canisters. And I was trying to figure out, I was thinking cookies, potato chips, pretzels, what the hell is he noshing on? And then he finally has a moment with Andy where he gets him to say Alex is king, and he like feeds him a tiny little cookie. So you see, oh, it was for the bit. It was for the bit that he was eating out of that can so that he could give Andy a little piece of kibble.
Mm-hmm. Can was huge. Like they couldn't get something smaller. Like he says, like grappling onto this big tin can of cookies.
And how long can a cookie stay good in a tin can? What's it? I feel like that's at cross purposes. If you're going to want to have and keep cookies, you can't be keeping them in an aluminum can that's open on top.
No. It looked like a big tin can that you use for like popcorn during the holidays, like those big tin cans.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, dessert popcorn.
And you're telling me in 1986 these Midwestern Keatons don't have Tupperware? Come on.
Bullshit.
They would have had Tupperware parties out the yin yang.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, and so then we cut to the living room, and Mallory's upset that she has to babysit, but Nick is coming over. We have a bit where Nick talks about Andy sleeping in a suit and tie, and that he's been hanging out too much with Alex.
By the way, the first
thing actually see it
stunned me at the beginning of the scene was, now Nick is putting Andy to sleep. Who is Bobby Costanzo going to come back over and put him to bed soon? I mean, everybody's putting.
Oh, I hope so.
Sleep, except Mommy and Daddy.
What are they doing?
What? That's so important that they can't putting their baby to bed. They insisted on having the baby. We were all fine with 3 kids. Why'd they have to go and have 4?
I don't understand what it is that these two people are doing at 9 o'clock on a weeknight in Columbus, Ohio, that they can't put their kid to sleep.
Yeah, because they don't say it's like a date night or anything like that, which you would think a date night is going to be like on a Friday evening, Saturday evening.
Parents are boring people. That's why you don't hang out with them. That's the whole thing about parents, is that they're terrible. And they stay home and they raise their kids. That's why I'm so cool.
Yeah. And the biggest thing about parents, Paul, is they just don't understand.
They don't. I think if you lay down a fatty beat, I might be able to maybe rap about it. But no, it's just so strange.
Say fatty beat?
Yeah, a fatty beat.
Okay. That's because you're so cool.
Yeah, I know the lingo that the kiddos are using.
Fatty beat.
No, but
fatty beat.
Because this show never takes its own reality seriously and use it to its own advantage, they just are like, oh, who's going to take care of the kid because we need them in a scene? And it's just always really bad. It takes away from the show itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Nick and Mallory have this conversation, which this is where, like, I don't get this logic at all.
Me neither.
Mallory and they hang their hat on this scene. Mallory starts talking I like it when it's just you and me, and I picture us, she's kind of picturing this idea of them playing house and what their apartment would look like. And from there we should get married. Don't know where that's coming. I'm stressed. I need to get married to Nick.
I mean,
that is the crux of this.
The credit I'll give them in this episode is that they get to the point quickly. We don't spend the first 2/3 of this episode with them, skipping around the idea of these two young kids want to get married. They're just like, here's the premise, let's go. And I like that. But yeah, it's not very well earned or organic.
How do you fill the next 20 minutes, though, after you get to that story? Not complicated at all. I mean, if you assume the complication is her mom and dad don't want her to get married, well, them to be together since minute one, so nothing has changed. There's no new information that was. Just they don't want them together. Okay, we've rehashed that. I thought we'd actually settled it and that he was an okay guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like the time that
too.
Steven went to the shoe store, and in ensuing episodes since then, where they just seem to get along better than not.
So it's sort of surprising that now they're really digging their heels in. It's like, wow, now that she wants to get married, Nick's like it's Jeffrey Dahmer that she's dating. And it's just not. He's not Jeffrey Dahmer. He's not a horrible person. He treats her with respect. No. He's incredibly kind to her. I don't see. I mean, yeah, I'm not. You wouldn't be happy that she's marrying a sculptor who's uneducated. But
yeah, but he's an awesome character. We've talked about how much we love Nick, and he's the only reasonable one, it seems, in this episode.
He treats her with more respect than anyone else in the Keaton household does.
That's for sure.
Yeah. And so the first one to find out about this decision is Alex, because he comes in and they proudly announce to him that they're planning to get married. And of course,
his response is horrible. And then Mallory and him have one of the most honest / bizarre / ridiculous exchanges where she says to him, "Why does everything I do involve you?" And he says, "Because I am the center of your universe." And at 20 years old, that somebody hasn't smacked that notion out of his head yet is one of the saddest, most pathetic things I've ever heard in my life. I teach 8-year-old children, and I tell them every single day, Mommy and Daddy have spent many, many, many hours convincing you that you are the center of the universe. And I'm here, dear student, to tell you you're not the center of the universe. In an acting class, you're all the center of the universe.
Jesus, sorry. They could be playing Zip Zap Zop, and
nope. I'm telling them they're not the center of the universe.
Not the center of the universe.
You know what? When children walk into auditions and think they're the center of the universe, they create problems in a work situation. I'm teaching them a real skill for a real city to have a real job. And if they want to work in the business, you have to work as a team member, not the star.
Yep.
So you are not the center of anybody's universe.
It's true.
Yep. Absolutely.
And for Alex Keaton to think he is the center of his sister's universe when her fiance is sitting next to her is so ridiculous. I can't believe Nick didn't beat the living shit out of him.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing ever. Honestly, I think we could just stop this episode and just keep talking about this one exchange
this moment. Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It sums up everything we've been talking about for at least a season and a half now.
It's almost as if they keep on saying, if we say it often enough, the sting of Alex being that much of a narcissistic sociopath will go away and we'll just accept it as normal. Sort of like our political situation. If we continue to act like assholes in front of the entire country, everyone will accept the fact that that's just us and this will become the new normal. No, it's not normal. I'm never going to recognize narcissism as the way somebody should act. No, it's narcissism.
No.
In every situation, it's narcissistic, and I'm going to call him on the fact that it's narcissistic each time.
And it keeps looking to push boundaries that every time, and that's how sitcoms work over seasons, is that they get more outlandish as they go along. Like the characters that started out kind of muted in season 1 become a lot more garish by season 6 or whatever.
Right.
And things get accentuated and stuff like that. And so with Alex P. Keaton and this weird, peculiar characterization that they've come up with, that he's this really self-absorbed person, it's gotten stranger and stranger, and this is like the culmination of that. So it's like what you're talking about, Corey, with politics and Trump and all this stuff about normalization. They keep getting crazier and expect us to find it endearing.
Right.
Right. And there's no likability with it. With every jump you make with characters, there has to be the idea of likability for acceptance. And this set Alex up to be they could have gone the way of showing more of his flaws, having him kind of come to terms with himself and growing up, which would be way more interesting and more opportunities for the character. But instead, again, making caricatures of what they've created.
I just want to reiterate what happens here. She says she wants to get married. He gets upset because this has an impact upon him. It doesn't, folks. Oh, Scott just got up.
I'm back.
Okay. It has no impact on Alex P. Keaton, her wanting to get engaged or married. But he pretends like it is. And then she's like, why are you acting this way? And he says, because I'm the center of your universe. That's it. That's A, B, and C. And it makes no sense. I don't know why you would create a character who thinks that way or write that down for dialogue to be said in front of cameras, to be broadcast in front of people. Who thinks that way?
Who thinks... doesn't even think that way. There's never been a moment where she's ever felt or been that thoughtful of Alex in that sense. She's never felt that Alex is the center of her universe, so there's absolutely no reason why he should even consider that thought. But again, he's a narcissist.
It's really weird and creepy.
I think this is one of the most pivotal moments we've ever talked about on Quality Time. This sums up so much in this episode.
What happened to Alex P. Keaton?
Yes, this is where we're like asking, what happened to Alex P. Keaton?
Why is he such an asshole? Why is he this way?
I'm hoping this gets resolved, because this season we have an episode that is kind of a big one for us, is the My Name is Alex. And I hope maybe that
we'll take him down a notch.
Resolve some of this.
Maybe if he goes to therapy, it might help.
Or a black box theater.
Yeah.
So Alex sees this as a reflection of himself, and then then there's the discussion of having to tell mom and dad, and we cut to the kitchen, and Nick is putting flowers in a vase, singing "I Love You, Mallory," which I thought Scott Valentine not a bad voice.
No, didn't sound terrible at all.
Yeah, it surprised me a little bit. And of course, Elise and Steven come home from where we don't know, from whatever it is they had to do, where everyone had to watch Andy. Oh, we do forget a moment of Andy coming down the stairs in the suit and tie and doing a Nick, hey.
Oh, they tell him that they're going to get married.
Yeah. And he's like, hey. So it's not just he's going to be mimicking Alex, he's going to also be mimicking Nick.
Right. But Steven and Elise come into the kitchen, and this is when Nick is going to ask them or tell them that he and Mallory are getting married. He tries to say it once, and he messes up, and it's this joke that doesn't work that lasts way too long. Then he says it, and Steven and Elise say, we're going to leave the room, come back in, and you're going to tell us something completely different. They leave, they come right back in. And then he says it again.
Yep. And of course, fade out on their disappointed looks.
Fade out on our disappointed looks. We'll be right back. And we're back. Woo! Man, that was a hip happening first half of the episode, wasn't it, guys?
Ah, so much going on.
That was like a fatty beat. You dropped a fatty beat on it.
You want me to start? I could do the Bartman. I know the Bartman, all the lyrics.
Also written by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Boom! Tying it all together.
Boom. Yep. So we're in the kitchen. Alex and Elise are talking about Mallory getting married to Nick, how disappointed they are, and they say the line, and this is where we get to some really bad shit here. They say the line, "It's been really hard on your father." Cut to Stephen Keaton entering, singing, "Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen."
So, liberal Gary David Goldberg, a man who has lived through the civil rights movement, thought that it would be appropriate to have his lily white cast singing 3 Negro spirituals in the scene. 3 of them.
Yes, that is what happens in this episode.
Uncomfortably offensive to me because Negro spirituals. And they can,
we all do.
They're a spiritual. Hey, could you stop singing spirituals? But the word that goes before it to me is a little bit more important than the word that goes after it. They're Negro spirituals. They're spirituals of African Americans' pain during slavery. I'm not sure I want to hear the Keatons singing that in response to their white daughter running off with her white boyfriend.
And Corey, what you're saying is exactly the subtext that they're trying to put across. That somehow them having their daughter want to get married to a guy they don't like is analogous to going through slavery and post-Reconstruction America, the lynchings and the history of that. Right. That's what Gary David Goldberg is co-signing, that these two things are exactly alike.
Yes.
I'm stunned and offended.
Yeah, and not only that, but you used repeatedly as a joke, as a punchline, which is it's disgusting. It's just it's horrible. It's horrible. And we got to look at the history here too with Family Ties, guys. Like, this has been something that's repeatedly come up in episodes.
Yep.
It has to do with his Gary David Goldberg's liberal, every time he's got one of his liberal longings, he somehow or another, it comes out in a very non-liberal way. Right place, but his typewriter isn't. His fingers on his keyboard are.
Yeah, it's a similar dynamic. It's in present day, similar dynamic to the racism, sexism, and Islamophobia that you find in Bill Maher.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yep,
your older liberals' favorite person to post videos on Facebook about. All of the old people are like, "Oh, he's so pithy," and really, he's problematic as hell.
Can I tell you what Bill Maher did to me?
Definitely see.
No, what?
Oh no, what?
When I was very young in my stand-up career, I was at the Improv in New York, and one night, he knew I was about to go on, and he came on stage. He had been doing it for a very long time. He was very polished by the time I was there. And one night, he decided, knew he was going on right before me. He went on stage, and he did my act.
What?
I'm gobsmacked right now. What?
I had, and this was a time in my stand-up, I had 5 minutes. That's all I had. And he went and he did my 5 minutes, laughed his ass off, didn't care whether he got a response or not, did my 5 minutes, and then said, "And now I'm bringing to the stage Corey Pepper." And he brought me up to the stage. And I had no material to do.
What did you do?
I just yelled at people in the audience for my whole set.
Oh my God.
Shit.
Oh my God, Corey, why did you never tell us this before?
I don't know how it never came. one memory of Bill Maher is him going and doing my, and you know what? I sort of felt like he pushed me to have a good 5-minute set. And after I did that, comedians would like go, oh, don't do your material. Just go rip people a new asshole in the audience. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to create more material. But
right.
He actually gave me the confidence that I can go and rip people a new asshole for 5 or 10 minutes and be fine.
Wow. That's truly just a dad throwing you into the deep end of the pool.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm.
Did you hate him after that, or were you? Or
I did. Yeah. No, I hated him.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know a bunch of waiter stories of people talking about waiting on him and how much of an asshole he is.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Well, look at him every time he's on a talk show. Who's he been on recently that I saw him? He and Colbert had that really tense one where he called him Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Maher said, "Hey, Steve." He said, "Steve, what are we in 3rd grade? No one calls me Steve."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he hates anybody that does political humor.
Mm-hmm. He thinks it's his shtick, so you can't do it.
Right.
I found his interview with Milo Natsiopoulos to be interesting. Mm-hmm. I actually thought it was an interesting interview only because I'd only read Milo Natsiopoulos' stuff before. I'd never actually seen him. And when you see him, first of all, I found him to be charming and almost likable, which makes him even scarier to me.
Well, luckily, he's just outed himself as a pedophile apologist. So
I did this morning, and I thought, okay, well, he give him enough rope to hang himself, he will. He just likes to stay stupid shit. He's gonna make something so stupid sooner or later that's gonna hang himself.
Right. So.
Right.
Pointed out in the interview, he really just comes off as a whiny little bitchy queen. Is how he comes off, and enjoy the company of whiny, bitchy little queens. I think they're funny to hang around with. But then he spews so much hate that I can only laugh at him. I can't really take him seriously. But he spews so much hate out into the world that people take him seriously.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I always felt like listening to it is like what annoy, and going back to Paul's point about Bill Maher is he keeps saying the entire interview how he thinks he's completely wrong on so many topics, yet never challenges him on any of it.
He basically gave him the forum to discuss all of the things that he thinks without challenging him.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
If you haven't noticed, audience, this is what we're talking about because really nothing else happens in this episode of Family.
Absolutely. In fact, I hardly have any notes for the rest of the episode because nothing happens. They're spinning their wheels until the act break.
Yeah. Yeah, they keep building up on the spiritual singing joke. They have like a 3-part. They end that scene with a 3-part chorus, and then there's a scene at Nick's apartments. With
wait, you skipped. Whoa! You calm down, Scott Jones. Holy moly!
I'm sorry.
You're skipping over. You're skipping over the gentleman caller, Greg.
Oh, did that happen before? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that happened after.
Yeah, no. So this is before Mallory goes to Nick's apartment.
Yeah, this is a lovely piece of logic.
So Alex comes in to the kitchen, and he's brought his friend Greg, who's a tall, blonde version of Michael J. Fox, and they're dressed almost the same. He apparently is a fraternity brother, and he has brought Greg over so that way Mallory can fall in love with him instead of Nick.
Right, because that happens.
Ultimately, and the show almost goes in this direction, Alex says, well, if she's not going to fall in love with him, I am. And honestly, I would have much rather watched a whole episode about Alex P. Keaton falling in love with a fraternity brother.
Yeah,
that would have been nice. Like he just questions his sexuality. He's 20 years old, and he's just like, what am I doing? I like this guy. We hang out and have a great time.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd been amazing. Yeah. And then, of course, Mallory has no interest in this guy. She goes over to Nick's to talk about what's going on, and he encourages her to hit the heavy bag to get out.
Man, Scott Jones.
Anger.
Scott.
What am I doing?
You're fired. You're fired.
Rightfully so.
All right, listen.
Last week, I didn't watch the episode. This week, I'm skipping over stuff.
Tea and crumpets.
How do you have notes for this?
That's my last set of notes.
Fuck the tea and crumpets.
Wait, do you have notes about tea and crumpets? Or do you want me to?
I only wrote down that I had something that I wanted to talk about tea and crumpets. They had that panning shot across everyone drinking tea that reminded me of like the Christopher Walken shot from Annie Hall.
Yes.
You know, pan real slowly across Elise drinking tea, Steven drinking tea. Let's get to Nick. How does Nick drink tea? With the spoon jammed between his fingers and him slurping and then pouring from the saucer back into the tea. It's a whole big shtick of tea drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, they're doing this because they've been to London. It's something they picked up while they were over there.
On their trip. Family vacation.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
This was the first time that the Keatons ever drank tea in America. They brought it back from... Yeah.
Yeah, and this whole conversation of why they feel it's a horrible idea for him and Mallory to get married. And then Mallory comes down and is, you know, of course, the Keatons always seem to do this with Nick. They invite Nick over without telling Mallory, and Mallory discovers that they've been having a conversation with Nick instead of including her in the conversation.
Yeah, that's weird. You would think, even for the purpose of a show, you would want everybody there to have an interesting dialogue or something. But for some reason, they try to make it that they were keeping a secret from her.
Yeah. And it's both of them getting married.
Right.
I did have both people in the room to discuss this.
Yeah, you want to have two exhausting conversations with these people? Like, if you're Stephen and Elise, you're like, all right, we just had an hour-and-a-half long conversation with Nick about marriage. Now we have to do it again with our daughter.
Right. It's ridiculous.
During the scene with Mallory, I think she sort of kind of said every cliche any human being could ever say. Stuff like, it's going to work out. We'll live on love. Don't worry about things.
Yeah. I'm 18. I can live on my own now.
And then Stephen or Elise goes, oh, look how great it's worked out for you guys. And Elise starts in with, well, it hasn't worked out that great for us, right, Stephen? And then they start pretending, oh, no, it's awful. It's terrible. It's not a good thing at all. We're not good. We're not happily married. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they forbid her to get married. There's a trick that works with everybody who's over 18. I forbid you to do that.
Oh, they want to, they keep going down the term grounded.
Grounded. Yeah.
She's in
it's the grounded
college.
Conversation. I don't know.
And Steven's like really thinking, like, we got to stick with the grounding. God, this episode's horrible. It really is.
It's bad.
And then do we get to the heavy bag, Paul?
Well, I just want to ask you guys a question about the scene and the discussion that they're having.
Okay.
There seems to be two problems that Steve and Elise have here. Is that, one, Mallory is so young that even if they were fine with her getting married, she's too young. And that's, I think, a good point to be made.
Mm-hmm.
Two is that they have an irrational hatred of Nick that we've never seen a real good explanation of why. And that's ridiculous to tell her that she can't get married to Nick. And so this episode goes back and forth, and I don't know which one they're trying to make the argument of more. One, to me, makes more sense. The other one is ridiculous, and I'm on each of their sides for each argument.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
18-year-olds don't need to get married. We don't die at the age of 35 anymore. Like, it's not like we're all pioneers.
No. And the smarter thing, I mean, and if they actually listened to why Mallory was wanting to have this logic of needing to marry Nick, I think if they approached it that way, they could probably give her the idea of, you don't need to get married, that this isn't a good idea. Like, you're going to actually end up probably ruining your relationship with Nick with getting married because you're 18, and marriage is a whole different burden to deal with. And yeah, it just seems like just and you're right, Paul. There is no rational, like, they should like Nick and try to like, look, I understand you guys wanting to get married, but how about this instead?
Go live with Nick.
That's what I was thinking. That's what you were talking about in the first scene of like, I like it when it's just us and our little home.
Right. There's the option. Go live together.
Compromise.
Don't be a big loser like your brother who's 20 years old and still living at home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm glad we solved that. So next week we'll be wait. We got another episode of this next week.
No. Now, see this? Look at this, Scott. Now you're skipping your favorite scene. Now,
no, I was joking, Paul. I was joking.
I know. I'm kidding.
I don't want to miss the heavy bag. I'm not missing the heavy bag, man.
So
can you tell I like the heavy bag?
You love it. So we leave. Mallory runs out the door, and we end up at Nick's apartment, which, let me just say, is a strange thing because he used to live at his aunt's house.
Yeah. And it still looks like his aunt's house.
Yes. But he makes allusions to the fact that he has neighbors in the building.
Right. And so he sees Mallory is stressed and can't stand her parents right now and having a hard time. And so he encourages her to work out that stress by hitting the heavy bag.
Now, for those of you who aren't big Rocky fans, the heavy bag is a boxing thing.
Yeah.
It's a bag. It's a bag and it's heavy.
Yeah, that really is what it is. It just hangs down from the ceiling, this big heavy bag, and boxers hit it. And Nick talks about, he hits it, when he's stressed out and he says, I have the right to look in your trash, and hits it. Like, say what you're angry about and then hit the heavy bag.
The thing about Nick is he always seems to find really interesting and effective ways to deal with his emotions. Like the thing that the Keaton team grossly incapable of, he always finds an unorthodox and effective way of like working through his problems, which always makes him a better person than Alex or the rest of the Keatons.
Yes, I have a prediction for the second half of this. Nick is going to be the one to resolve everything.
Of course, because he's the only one with a good head on his shoulders.
Yeah.
Exactly. But through the hitting of the heavy bag, Mallory comes to the realization that she can't take it anymore and that they should elope.
Oh, and he says that they can elope in New Jersey, which his cousin uses this place all the time. I don't know what the joke was there, but the audience liked that.
Yeah. I guess that his cousin gets married a lot?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's it, folks. So that's the end of the episode, is that they say, let's elope, and then freeze frame, we're going to part 2. So...
but it was a great episode.
I thought it was fantastic. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of this episode.
Yeah. Fantastic episode for season 5. Well, gang, for questions and comments, be sure to email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com, and be sure to like our Facebook page. You can also follow us on Twitter at QTWFT. Each of us is also on Twitter. I'm at Follow Jones.
I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep.
We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is an online conglomerate of geek media, providing its readers with daily insights with podcasts and interviews. We also like to thank Perry Adams, who beautifully performs the theme song Without Us. Check out Perry's music at perryadams.com. And Brian Dillon, Fanbase Press president, be sure and check him out on Comic Book Slayer on Twitter. And lastly, Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Sha-la-la-la.